2, 3, testing. And I am here. Okay. So I don't know what's going to happen here this time. There are things to say. But I do know that I want to start with something from The Morning Bride. So it kind of a little sets the tone. Last time I showed up here to do a live, I was deciding whether to keep loving the person that I lost. Excuse me. And I assumed that what would happen was that when I did my next podcast, that I would talk about forgiveness. My therapist thinks this is a very good idea, this whole podcast thing, because I'm very distant from my emotions sometimes. And I tend to intellectualize. So I thought, okay, I had decided to still love him, which now means I am now ready to move on to forgiveness. And so we shall now move on to forgiveness. And it didn't work that way. I did decide to tell him. And once I made that real, I was surprised at how much rage came up, how angry I was. And of course, I can intellectualize it. I can explain that, it makes total sense. Oops, I forgot my thingy. Just a sec. It makes total sense because, of course, as long as my anger was very confusing. Every time I started to feel angry, I also started to feel afraid. I started to feel afraid of my anger about what my friend did. We'll call her Nicole for the purposes of this broadcast. I felt anger for what he did and for the fact that he has not cleaned up his mess, that he left me to clean up this mess. But every single time I would try to think about it, or every time that it would come up in my mind or my heart and I would feel that way, I would get really scared because I was afraid that in acknowledging how angry I was, that I would have to stop loving him. That the two things I don't know. I was afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing Nicole. I was afraid of losing my other friend, Anna. And so my feelings about them were very, very confused, very conflicted. And so I couldn't allow myself to get properly angry out of fear that that rage or that anger would burn clean through anything in my heart that made me feel love for them. Because it is true, while it is true that I have never, sorry about that noise, while it is true that I have never stopped loving anyone once I've begun, it is also true that betrayal transforms that love into something completely unrecognizable to what it was before. I still love them as a person, as a human being. I hope that they have a good life. I have a memory of my affection for them, and that is also important to me. But I just basically stopped feeling about them. I no longer feel what I felt about a person. That used to be like my kind of go to when I would experience a betrayal. It's just somebody, and it wasn't voluntary. It's like somebody turned off a switch, and I just didn't see them the same way. I didn't feel the same way. And I was afraid of that because these are three people in my life who have meant a tremendous amount to me. And I am grateful for what they gave me. And I felt that what they gave me was worth trying to maintain my love for them, just like I have with others that are no longer in my life. Give that gift, do that gift thing. And I think that where I landed, well, I'm going to read from The Morning Bride because it is beautiful. And if you've never seen Dr. Foster, I kind of think you should because it's just amazing. So this is I don't know this play at all. I kind of looked it up at the time. I was watching Dr. Foster and I have no memory of the things I learned about it. But the character is Zara, and I think she's had a lover betray her. And I'm not exactly sure what her deal is, but here's how it starts. What? Does my face displease thee? That having seen it, thou dost turn thy eyes away as from deformity and horror? If so, this sable curtain shall again be drawn, and I will stand before thee seeing and unseen. Is it my love? As again that question speaks again in that soft voice, and look again with wishes in thy eyes. Oh no, thou canst not, for thou seest me now, as she whose savage breast has been the cause of thy wrongs, as she whose barbarous rage has loaden thee with chains and galling irons. Well, dost dost thou scorn me and upbraid my falseness? Could one that loved thus torture what she loved? No, it must be hatred and dire revenge and detestation that could use thee thus. So thou dost think. But then do, then do but tell me so. Tell me, and thou shalt see how I'll revenge thee on this false one, how I'll stab and tear this heart of flint till it shall bleed, and thou shalt weep for mine, forgetting thine own miseries. And the other character says, You wrong me, beauteous Zara. Believe I bear my fortunes with so low a mind as still to meditate revenge on all whom chance or fate, working by secret causes, has made perforce subservient to that end, that heavenly powers allot me, not, no, not you, but destiny and inauspicious stars have cast me down to this low being. Or granting you had, from you I have deserved it. Canst thou forgive me then? Wilt thou believe so kindly of my fault to call it madness? Oh, give that madness yet a milder name, and call it passion. Then still, then be still more kind, and call that passion love. A little bit later in the scene, she says, trembling and weeping as he leads her forth, confusion in his face and grief in hers. "'Tis plain I've been abused, death and destruction. How shall I search into this mystery? The bluest blast of pestilential air strike, damp, deaden her charms and kill his eyes. Perdition catch them both and ruin them apart, and ruin part him. Damned, damned dissembler, yet I will be calm, choke my rage, and know the utmost depth of this deceiver. You seem much surprised at your return so soon and unexpected, and so unwished, unwanted too, it seems. Confusion. Yet I will contain myself. You are grown a favorite since last we parted, madam. I did not know the princess favorite. Your pardon, sir. Mistake me not. You think I'm angry. You're deceived. I came to set you free, but shall return much better pleased to find you have an interest superior. You do not come to mock my memory, my miseries? I do. I could at this time spare your mirth. I know thou couldst, but I'm not often pleased, and will indulge it now. What miseries! Who would not be thus happily confined, to be the care of weeping majesty, to have contending queens at dead of night forsake their down, to wake their watery eyes, and watch like tappers o'er your hours of rest? Oh, curse! I cannot hold. Come, 'tis much. Villain! How, madam? Thou shalt die. I thank you. Thou liest. For now I know for whom thou'st lived. Live, then you may know for whom I die. Hell, hell, you'll be calm, dark, and unknown betrayer. But now the dawn begins, and the slow hand of fate is stretched to draw the veil and leave thee bare, the naked mark of public view. You may still be deceived. 'Tis in my power. As you'll answer it, take heed. This slave commit no violence upon himself. I've been deceived. The public safety requires he should be more confined, and none, no, not the prince's self, permitted to confer with him. I'll quit you to the king, vile and ingrate. Too late thou shalt repent the base injustice thou hast done my love. Yes, thou shalt know, despite thy past distress, and all these ills which thou so long hast mourned, heaven has no rage, like love to hatred scorned, like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury, like a woman scorned. I did not think that was me. I did not think that was me. I did not want to be. I know I have it in me. That song, Girl on Fire, to me, it's about, it has a different meaning for me, you know? It's about who are, women have the capability when they are pushed past the point in a situation of harming themselves, because we do tend to direct our rage inward. But when circumstances push us too far past, press us too much, we're capable of self immolation and burning everything down around us. Girls on fire are dangerous. My anger is dangerous and frightening to me. So I mask it and I deny it and I intellectualize it because that is the safest course for everyone, including me. But it has not done me any good. This past year has been vile and traumatic for almost every single person alive. I think for communities of color, it has had its own special hell. And in addition to that, and possibly because of that, I have enough generosity to believe that the situation would not have ended up the way it did had the world not blown up. I can believe that. But where does that leave me? Malcolm X wrote that there was no one more unprotected, more undefended, more disrespected than the Black woman. He was talking to Black men at the time. He was talking about how white men, if you put your hands on one of their women, how they feel like the right to kill you. And there's a part of this that's really hard for me. Oh gosh, there are so many hard parts, but one of the hardest parts, I'm I had a big fight with my guy, possibly entirely relationship ending. We took a time of no contact. And during that time, I told my best friend, Nicole, with great belief in her love for me and loyalty to me, to please not get into our our breakup, our relationship, what was going on with us, with him. That I didn't want her trying to advocate for me. I didn't want her meddling because I felt that she was not in a good place to do it because she was as affected by COVID, the sudden lockdown, more so because she worked in a hospital. So she was even more affected than most people um, by this pandemic happening. And I knew she wasn't at her best. And when she's not at her best, love her though I did, I know that she can be emotionally dangerous. And when she isn't at her best, I had gotten into the habit of sort of making myself less vulnerable to her. And if I'd had my mind during the time of that breakup, I would have known that she is the last person I should have gone to. She was the last person I should have leaned on because she's not safe. She was a woman on fire herself under immense pressure. So, yeah, I can see and acknowledge all of that. But the thought that keeps running around in my head is that knowing the history, knowing what it means, knowing I had never gotten involved with a Black guy before, even though I'm a Black woman, I don't like American men. Generally speaking, that's a wide, broad generalization, or not my culturally. Not my favorite cup of tea. It doesn't really matter what race. But my partner was of color. He was Black. And he was aware, it wasn't like he was asleep. He's the kind of guy who celebrates and grieves for the Black community and with the Black community as a part of the Black community. And the idea that instead of coming to me and speak to me, that he put a white woman between us feels like a betrayal on another level. The fact that she exercised that sort of betrayal that I have experienced over and over and over and over and over again at the hand of white women, which is to look on the surface, seem to profess their love for you, but be perfectly capable of treating you as if you're a pet rather than a human being when it suits them. And it suited her. She wanted my healing, but only at her hand. She wanted us back together, but only if she arranged it. And my continued, I had to because I felt so gaslit by the whole thing, because I was like, did I not make it clear? Did I not say to her, please don't get involved? Please don't meddle in this because it's delicate. And he and I have an inkling of the issues between us in ways that someone who is outside of us does not. And if you are my friend, and if you're saying you are team streaming consciousness, that's what she said. If you're saying that you're on my team, this is what I need from you. And she ignored me. I had the receipts for all of it. I mean, because I had to go back because I started to feel crazy for a while. I just started to feel like, because what I kept hearing was, we love you and we're here for you, and how dare you be angry with us, from both Nicole and Anna. After the 2 weeks, I sent him a letter. After the 2 weeks, no, I didn't send, it wasn't a letter. That's not when I sent the letter. I sent him a message. He sent me a message. He got in touch after the 2 weeks, like right at the practically even a little bit early time wise. So I thought that, we're going to talk. And instead he asked for a favor. Now, and I still didn't know what was going on with us. Were we going to be friends? Were we going to not be friends? Were we going to get back together? I didn't know. And the first thing he does is ask to lean on me. The last time we spoke, I had been so overburdened by life, my own, his, a friend of ours, my other friend. I was just loaded up, and I was brittle and fragile. And when we inevitably, because we're both in a bad spot, blew up at each other in that, catastrophic conversation, and then split up, I cried like day and night, except for the times I cried and I slept. It felt like that's all I did, was cry and sleep for those 2 weeks and sing. And for him to ask me a favor, I don't know what I thought. I think I thought, well, we must be kind of going to be okay. But instead of that, I tried to he made an overture. I returned it and he rejected me. I thought maybe we would be friends. I thought maybe we'd be able to talk. And his answer was, not comfortable with that. Now you're comfortable asking me a favor, but you're not comfortable with talking about us. You're not comfortable with being on each other's friends lists again. Okay. And I was in so much pain at that point. I needed to know which way to jump. And so I decided to jump out. And I sent him a loving letter of goodbye and saying, what he'd meant to me. Also, that I was available if you wanted to like get together and talk a couple of times a week or something. And what I received back, I've been slapped in the face a few times in my life. I mean, like physically hit by a man and knocked to the ground as a child. It was something my dad did from time to time. There's something about every single time that happened. It was something that shocked and shook something fundamental in and around me. The letter he sent me in response to mine felt like that. And I never imagined that from him. And still, my friend Nicole, the main actor in this, she is still providing him comfort and talking to him about us. Not just like a few days after I sent her a note she might not have recognized it as begging, but I was begging her to please stay out of this. Please don't take messages back to him. Don't ask me if I want to hear what he's telling you, because if you're telling him that you're not telling anybody else, then don't tell me. This is some kind of game the two of you are playing. He wants to talk to me, but he doesn't want to face me. Fine. And if you're telling him that you're not telling me, and I know he doesn't believe her. I know he feels that whatever he tells her, she's going to tell me. I was like, I'm out of this. I am taking myself out of the equation of this situation where the things that you say to each other are what's true. He wants confidentiality. You're offering confidentiality. So do not tell me. I am so sorry. My internet died. So I have no idea what got said that you heard. But basically, he basically. Here's the thing. Here's how I feel about things. All right. I've had friends break up, right? And my job in that moment is to be a friend to the relationship. And that means to work within the boundaries that each of them is okay with. So if you know they come to me usually. I might say, "How are you doing?" But that's not necessarily, I'll say, "How you doing?" and let them know that I'm there for them if they want to talk. But I leave it to them to come to me. And then I talk to them about them. I try my very, very best while still validating their feelings to talk about the person I am sitting with. Because I know that if they're going to get back together, if they're going to be together, they cannot control the other person. They cannot decide for the other person um, what to prioritize in terms of growth or fairness. They can't. It would be nice if we could, um, but people have their own ways of being. So I talk to them about them. And I certainly would never create a barrier in the communication between those two people. I would never place myself at the center between them. And if one of them tried to use me that way, I would say to her, I would say to that person, "I love you. I am here for you. But the person you need to be talking to, but come back to me after you've spoken to so and so. I will not be used by you." And the thing is this friend, this isn't the first time she's done this to me. This isn't the first time that she has centered herself at the end of my relationship, one of my relationships. She did the same thing the last time. And I believed, because we almost lost each other over that. The fallout from that just about broke us. We had to make some serious renegotiations in order to continue to be friends. And so I believed wholeheartedly there was no way she would ever do that again. Never mind worse. Because we weren't even like completely done. We'd said we'd broken up and actually never spoke those words to each other. We have never spoken the words "we're broken up" to each other. It was all done in text. So with things that not set in concrete, I'm not about to create any kind of barrier that will make that process of talking to each other more difficult. And if I had done this to her, she would never have spoken to me again. If when she broke up with her guy, if he started talking to me, because he was a friend of mine, and if he started, coming to me to talk to me about how awfully he feels he was treated and blah, 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 and how hurt he is, and, da 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 da, do I want to talk to her? No. Or, I don't, yeah, do I want to talk to her? No, I just want to talk to you about this. Whatever happened. I don't know how all of this went down, but I know what the action was. What the result was that instead of he and I finishing up our relationship, the two of them did that. And they decided between the two of them that he shouldn't speak to me. She told me that. Those were the words. He says, "I want to talk to her, but I'm afraid I'm going to yell." And she's like, "No, don't talk to her. She doesn't deserve for you to be yelling at her." And then she told me about it in a moment that I was just like really weak. And I kind of went along with it because I was messed up. I was outside of myself. And so I allowed it to continue because I just believed that there's no way that people who loved me would, and it's killing me. I felt like I was being tortured. I felt like I was being shredded. And I just didn't think that they would behave that way if it was unnecessary. So I chose to trust the trust that I'd placed in them. But, you know, and here's why I'm angry. There are a couple of reasons. But for him, a couple of times in our relationship, because he's got, he's seriously in a transition phase in his life. And a couple of times he said to me, promise me you won't let me break you. And what I felt I did in that moment when we were talking was saying to him, what I was trying to do was to say, I'm really fragile right now. And I need some stability from you in order not to break. And instead, I got an explosion. I didn't break. That didn't break me. The breakup even didn't break me. What broke me was this unholy union between the two of them. What broke me was having someone attesting to be my friend continue to participate in causing me that pain. Knowing how hurtful it is for me not to be able to talk things through with people I care about. And then when I regained my senses and got clear and realized how thoroughly gaslit I had been by her and by my other friend, Anna, who, just responded to all her white girl tears, which is another thing which really upset me. She responded to all her white girl tears and took her side without examining the situation objectively. Because if she put herself in my place, she would cut her dead. She would refuse to ever speak to her again, rather than accept that this woman has decided that she has the right, against my requests, against her request, to insert herself into the middle of the resolution of a relationship. That is a boundary that none of us would have crossed with each other. Hey, Goyas. Welcome. So I'm angry. I'm really, but it's a clean burn. It doesn't feel tangled. It feels resolvable. It feels like it's something I express, I feel, I process, and I'll be able to get through to the other side and still be able to love him. Because who he is, who he was at one of the worst moments in his life is not what I'm going to judge him by. But I'm angry with what I'm angry with him for. I mean, I don't even care if they got busy, if they did stuff together, which I kind of think they did because of the extreme reactions that both of them are having. I at the time it would have been a dagger in my heart, but now I'm like, I don't care. In fact, she wanted me to think that, because her last words to me, he and I talked way more than you knew. And I was like, when we were together, I wouldn't have cared about that. I don't care about, the fact that you guys talked a lot or talked more than I knew when we were together. I did know that you talked more than I knew after we broke up, because you kept lying. You kept changing your story. You would say, oh, we only talked for 5 minutes. Or, oh, I'm starting to think this, and that. And, so it was like, or try to carry messages from him, it was a lot of stuff happened in that 5 minutes. And it seemed to be spread out over weeks. So I didn't believe you when you said that you didn't talk to him about us, is how I felt. So, and I can't even think where I was going with that. But why? But it's a weird thing for an ex best friend to say to an ex best friend. It's it's to say to them, we talked way more than you knew. That's that's a victory lap. And if you're taking a victory lap, what is it that you thought you won? Him? Displacing me in his life and in his heart? Is that what you thought you won? His confidence? Because, he'd always been a little bit untrusting of you? What did you think you won? And so I started thinking, I asked myself the question at the beginning of it all. I was like, okay, do I think that they stepped over any lines together that would have meant that she was cheating on her guy? And I just decided to believe that they did, because then I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. And as I got more clarity and more distance, and as her behavior around this situation became more extreme, I mean, I don't know what she told our other friends to make all of them drop me without ever speaking to me, but she had to tell some pretty bad lies for that to happen, because I was the wronged party in this. So to me, that said that she did not want me in the mix because she was afraid. His not reaching out to me, like alien to his nature. Completely alien to the him that I know, to the him that he was to me, to the him that I've watched, have breakups, to the him that I've watched have separations. I've seen how he's conducted himself, and the idea that he would go from, us being totally in love to just not speaking to me and instead doing like nasty punishing things. I think a lot of that was shame. I think that was shame. And I don't know how far they went. But what matters to me is that when the chips were down, speaking of being unprotected, undefended, and disrespected, he aligned himself with a white woman from Alabama that we've both heard say, that he knows I've heard say the N-word. Hard R. That is what he did. And I've been betrayed by white women all of my life. So it's never not devastating. But it's a pain I'm familiar with. So I know exactly where to put it. She had this way of, I knew where her fault lines were. There were just times we'd be together and we'd be talking, and I would be talking about somebody, and I'd say, I'd say such and such about so and so. I didn't like them, or I didn't like what they did. And for me, not liking someone is very much behavioral. It has to do with what they do. And she would speak to me in a tone, and in my head, whenever she did it, I would flash back, imagining us in the South on one of those big porches, me shelling peas, her in a rocking chair fanning herself, telling me not to be disrespectful about my betters. That's the image that would come to mind every time I heard that tone. And I knew she was completely unaware of it. I knew she was completely unconscious to it. And so I let it go, because we all have places, unconsciousness in racial issues. But I swear to you, this is the last time I see that unconsciousness in a white woman, and I let her close to me. That is the last time. I will either address it, or I will address the racial issue, or she stays outside of my bubble. Because, I'm half cut to death by these women. And when it comes to Black men and loyalty, this Black man's loyalty, it was always kind of a problem. I I've decided that one thing I need to do is to never again love someone who does not love themselves at least a little. Because inevitably what happens when you love someone who doesn't love themselves at all, they start to hate you for loving them. They start to think that there's something wrong with you. And that made room, I believe, possibly, I don't know. I'm just guessing, because like I said, it's been silence for 6 months. Makes them believe that you have less value if you could love them. And Anna's defection hurt. And I'm angry with her, because we have both been burned by white women. We both know what it is like. We both know how it is that they can stab you in the back and then fall apart over it. With the tears and the woe is me and I'm so whatever thing, when it's clear, absolutely, and in the times when it's been absolutely clear that the woman was wrong, the tears are about, oh, I feel so bad, I can't believe I did that, and da 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 da. It's a preemptive strike against taking responsibility and being accountable and making some recompense, because then you have to take care of her. So like when I caught her saying the N-word, no, it wasn't malicious. No, it wasn't directed at a Black person or anything like that. But when we talked about it, I had to spend my time comforting her. Never mind that I was the one who let this woman deep, deep, deep into my life, into my heart. And I walked in and heard her say what is probably the last words that my grandfather ever heard. And what that did to me. There was no time to deal with that, because it was all about her being upset. She centers herself a lot. She centers herself she centered herself in my achievements. So if I was doing something amazing, she'd talk it up, almost as if she was involved, which she wasn't. So the idea that my Black friend could just take her tears at face value and not have a real conversation with me, to say, tell me what's going on with you, because what I'm hearing is that you've lost your mind. I deserved that from her because we both have been burned in the same ways. And it always looks like the white woman involved is the victim. So that she didn't choose to dig deeper, that she didn't choose to look deeper, ask deeper. I'm mad. I am pissed. I am just enraged at all three of them, the little unholy trinity that they are. They made this big old mess, and it did break me. I broke into a million pieces. I broke. I was so broken. I had a day and a night of thinking that all I was were the bad opinions they held of me, that that's who I was. I couldn't figure out who I was. And I wrote about it in my journal. I wrote, okay, it hurts. The I'm a bad person place is acting up again. Its pain exists in tandem with I will always be alone. One never kicks off without the other. How fascinating. I'm a bad person. Why does it matter? Because I will always be alone. Friends will stop loving me. Everything feels unforgivable. It is because, is it because I'm unforgiving? So right, right? Always right. That's me. I've I've collapsed beneath that fucking letter. The letter that he sent me. Swallowed it whole. This is now who I am. I've set my feet on the path and I don't know how to bring them back. There is no me anymore. I don't know where to find her. She's just gone. Maybe that's what I've been on the run from. And then the next day, I can feel myself again. The parts of me that are not other people's poor opinion. I felt non existent. Never had a super firm grip on reality to start with, on the idea of myself as a person. Doubly confusing, deeply confusing. Life is like a whirlwind, sucking you in and spitting you out a million miles away from anything you've ever known, and no idea if or when or if you should bother trying to get back. It's biting me in the ass, though one thing I've learned thoroughly is to keep people out of my relationship, what's left of it with him. It was a really bad night. I broke into about a million pieces. And I'm angry with him because it felt intentional. It felt like his behavior was designed to break me while he made a clean getaway. Because if I wasn't broken, if I had anything of me that was functional in the moment, I'd have recognized what was happening and the BS of it. And I'd have called everybody to account. And so I think both of them needed me broken. And so they broke me. But I've been broken before. And I've rebuilt myself before, more than once. And so I'm doing that work. But yeah, no Zen for Nicole. That whole lovey dovey, hearts and flowers, I will always love you, my love is a gift thing. I have basic love for her that I have for a human being who exists on the planet. But as far as that, I have the door to my heart is closed against her. That was the betrayal. Because it wasn't even the fact that she did all that crap. Because I would have forgiven her. I've forgiven her for what she did in that time of interfering in the relationship and putting her nose in and keeping us apart. I would have forgiven that. But what I could not forgive was her anger at me for being angry, for resenting her behavior, for feeling that I had the right to have my boundaries respected. That there was no place to go forward from. If she wasn't willing to acknowledge that I had the right to be upset, or even to forget about an apology, but at least acknowledge that I have the right to be upset, even if she doesn't agree or understand why, that my reason for being upset is, it's mine. And it's okay for me to have those feelings and to work through them. And she could have just been patient. And that's what I asked for. That was, my last ditch effort at saving the relationship was a very long letter that I wrote to her laying out every reason why it was such a bad idea for her to have involved herself. And, one of the primary ones was that what I'd never wanted to sit between she and I was the idea that perhaps if she had not been involved, that my guy, my ex, would still be in my life in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he always intended she's just like ghost and then haunt and then, pretend I never existed once he got over whatever he's doing. Maybe that was always his intention. But her involvement makes it impossible for me to know that clearly. Because she was one of the people who decided that he and I should not talk. So, no Zen for Nicole. Anna, no Zen for Anna either. Because frankly, the road of broken glass that she makes you crawl through to forgive you for telling her the truth is just not worth it. So, and it's not like anybody's apologizing or making amends or having any realizations or recognitions. They're all quite content in their wrongness and in their status as betrayers and liars. So this is really academic, but it's just me trying to work through all of this stuff. I really, really thought that this podcast, after the last one, was about love and how I still love him and I will continue to love him because that's who I am. He gets that treatment because he was in such a bad place that if it were me, I would have blown everything up. I would have blown my entire life up if it were me and I was feeling the way he was at that time. So, yeah. And if they did indeed overstep into a place where somebody took their pants off, then it would be very, very like him not to come to me because his shame would be eating him alive. I might be wrong about that, but that's the him that I knew. That is the only thing that I could imagine that would have created all the chaos. Because, it's never the crime, it's always the cover up that causes the damage. if either one of them had come to me and said, "Hey, look, I overstepped. I went too far." Thank you, Hot Rod. I went too far. We went too far. We became inappropriate, either emotionally or physically or both. And I'm very sorry for that. Or I recognize that you guys were not done and that me being involved created an issue for you. And I'm sorry for that. Or, you know, you and I have been friends for 4 years and 5, 6 years, something like that. And when Nicole came to me about how you were behaving, I should have come to you privately. I should have been more understanding. I should have been more empathetic. I should have put myself in your place. I should have remembered all of my interactions with white women that I thought were friends who've screwed me over. I should have at least given you the opportunity to let me know whether or not that was the story. So no Zen for Anna either. You know, the ex gets a little Zen because he was not himself. What my two dearly departed friends did, I'm afraid very much aligned their characters. I guess. I mean, okay, mine, because I will say I was surprised by Anna. I didn't expect that from her. I was completely shocked. I knew that we had issues, but I had no idea that she was carrying so much resentment that she would use the opportunity of the worst breakup from the man I loved the most ever and the person who loved me better than anybody on this planet ever has to start letting her resentment show up. So I I do want to talk to her. I I don't feel ready to move on from Anna because I feel like she was bamboozled. I feel like she was lied to and manipulated and taken advantage of by a master manipulator who will admit to being a manipulator. She will say that herself, that she's manipulative. But, such is life. I don't know why I did this. Wow. I feel like there's still something sitting on my chest that I'm not saying because and I just feel like I should say it all, say all the things. I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time saying all the things. I have a hard time acknowledging hurt. Good with rage. Rage is cool. Hurt is. I've been in bad places before. I've been homeless. I've been friendless. I've been familyless. I have been betrayed before by people who are supposed to know better. But it never stops me feeling as if the world is an incredibly unsafe place. My life is unsafe, always. The most safety I ever felt was with him. Because I've been in situations where, like, for a decade, things went from bad to worse in all areas of my life. And the idea of hoping for better out of that, after getting out of that, heck, once I got stabilized, I was just desperate to hold on to stability. And in comes this man into my life who has been to some very dark places in his life, but who was able to try not just for stability, but to excel, to fly. And his determination inspired me to do the same, inspired me to stretch out and try some things that have been really good for me, have really good for my life. And I'm grateful for that. And the betrayal by him, the continued betrayal, because every day he betrays what we had. Every day that he does not here's what I say to comfort myself now when I start to miss him. I say to myself, he is in this moment too, and he is choosing not to reach out. And that always makes it a little easier for me to deal with. Because he's just not, he's gone, he's done, it's over. And to remind myself that even though I am not over it, that is my problem and nobody else's. I expect, like most men, because men tend to be boomerangs, that a couple of years from now, he'll catch a conscience about this situation. Something someone says will remind him that he left a big old mess for someone else to clean up. And he will reach out and he will say something. Hey, I just want to check in on you, see how you're doing. They always do it. They can't help themselves. A couple of years from now does me no good. So he'll be doing that for himself. And that's fine. But I will certainly say to him, I hope that made you feel better at that time. Because when when it would matter, when a little kindness would matter, is now. When I've been like exiled from a considerable number of the relationships that I had. So yes, anger. Very angry person right now. Lots of it, but it has helped clarify things. It has helped me to clarify that, first of all, that when he does, if he does, because if he listens to this, he might not, but if he does, when he does come back, and I'm all healthy and whole again, that's about him and not me. Also, that I am no longer going to be comfortably Black. I am going to be an uncomfortable Black person. I've lived my whole life struggling, to smooth myself out in ways that that allow white people to keep their cultural perceptions of themselves intact, not to make them too uncomfortable by showing them a different, it's safety. It is, and you do that you do that because you want to work. You do that because you need services. You do that because you just do it because it's what you're taught to do. And it's survival. But I have decided for sure two things when it comes to the women in my life. When it comes to white women, I will address the fault lines around the unconscious areas of racial prejudice that I see in them, I will address directly. And how they respond will determine how close I allow them to remain. And when it comes to Black women, to make sure she's not a pick-me. So that when the chips are down, that the resentment that they feel about whatever is going on good with you And that's just like another thing. Black women, we can be really hard on each other. There is an expectation to just soldier on practically no matter what. And the thing is we're humans, we're not soldiers, and even if we were soldiers, we're not robots. So there are times we're going to fall apart. And sometimes the most dangerous place to be when you're falling apart is next to a Black woman who is unconscious of her own broken places. Because sometimes what will happen is that instead of attempting to comfort, instead of being about your healing, their resentment and anger comes in. Because I have this feeling too of like, when I see someone who's like super, super emotional and emotive and breaking and falling apart all the time, and and staying broken for years over things that have happened to them that were, to me, do not seem worth being broken for years over. It's envy. It's envy that the freedom that white women have to be fragile, to be delicate, because there's always someone somewhere who's going to be willing to assume that they deserve to be protected. And I know that resides in my heart. So I imagine that I am not the only Black woman whose heart that resides in. And that envy, that wish to break, to just give me a minute, like this year, just let me break for a while, okay? Just let me fall apart and never get back up for, I don't know, a while. Just let me lay here in the middle of the road until I can find what all my pieces enough to stand and walk again. We don't really give each other we don't always give each other the room to feel broken, because you break, I break, Jack. You cannot break down right now because I can feel all my broken pieces and places, starting to rattle around. You can't.
It's we are suffering. We are, I think "you got this" are some of the most, one of the most toxic phrases for Black women in the English language, because we don't got this. We are exhausted. We lose sleep. We have anxiety attacks. Our bodies age internally faster than white women's. We do not have this. We are not okay. But we're forever telling each other that we are. And it would be nice if we could just stop the BS and acknowledge to both ourselves and each other that we're not. And so now the recording will pick up where the live broadcast begins again, because I'm sorry, there was a technical difficulty and I lost connection for a moment again. We don't got this.
Anxiety attacks. We can't sleep. We are terrible at this. But we tell each other that we do all the time. Soldier on. We say that to each other. And so I recognize where it comes from. I recognize how it can happen, what happened with me and Anna. And she's in a different place for me. Like, I haven't decided one way or another whether I will continue to love her. I haven't decided whether I'm going to let the betrayal that I felt at her hands allow the door that was hers in my heart to close her out. Except for that, basic human kind of feeling about, I love you because you're a person on this earth and I care that you exist, and we used to have something. Now, Nicole, she's out. She's out in the cold. I don't feel anything about her anymore. I mean, I just, I'm just like, yeah, white women are going to white women. Whatever. She did it. So, gosh, this was a long one. It's way longer than I expected it to be. I don't know why I allowed myself to do this. It's kind of crazy. And I can't quite seem to stop. I feel like there's something I'm not saying. There's something I'm trying not to say, and I don't know what it is. Um, but maybe I will figure it out. So thank you all for showing up. The two of you that did, I appreciate it. Goyen and Hot Rod. I wish for you a soft place to fall. I wish for you love and safety in some place, in someone, even if it's only in your own personal space. And I hope that you're okay. Everyone out there who listens to this, I hope that you're okay. Even the people that I mentioned, I hope that you're okay. Because this year has been a bear and none of us got out without being traumatized. We are all traumatized. So I'm trying in my heart to like continually remember that. So my forsaken heart, welcome. I am so sorry that you've come in now because I think I'm just about to wrap up. But everybody be well. I wish you love. Streaming consciousness.